His clients call him the Energetic Plumber. Any guesses as to why?
Nope.
So
I'm just thinking roto-rooter.
That's exactly right. Yeah. When you think of a plumber coming in and, your sink gets a little clog and all of a sudden the water starts overflowing and it starts collecting all this crud or whatever. Well, the same thing happens in our bodies with energy. So he actually goes in and through visualization, he helps people, like he visualizes the energies and the blockages, and he helps people to heal themselves of those blockages.
Well, why don't we let him tell us about that?
You know what? That's probably a better idea. My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
So we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something.
Anything.
That will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Skeptic Metaphysician. I'm trying, Karen. I'm trying to do things differently every time. There's only so many times you can say welcome.
There was a hesitation on the hey. I was hey.
I know, because I thought I was going to say something first, and then I went off in a complete different direction, and I had no idea what was happening, so I just kind of went with it.
I see that.
Did it sound good?
Keep going.
The magic of editing. Okay, well, Karen, again, excited about our next guest. We've already had a chance to talk to him previously. And in fact, his episode is one of the top 5 most downloaded episodes of our show. Are you aware of that?
I am now.
Yeah, super excited because we're talking about healing. And at the end of the day, that's what the show is truly, it's for. It's to find ways to heal. So once again, I want to introduce to the show our friend, Scott Clover. Scott, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hi, both of you. Nice to be here.
Always fun to have you. It's great to see you again. So did that intro do any justice to what you do?
Sure. I mean, I'm an intuitive energy healer. So that means I see and sense energy patterns that are in and around people's bodies, in and around their soul patterns, their emotions, their histories. And there's a lot of books out there, like The Body Bears the Brunt or The Body Tells the Story. My biology is my biography, or my biography is my biology, has been said. And so what I do is I help people understand where their blockages are. They see them in their own accord. They see them for what they are and not what their stories they've told themselves over the years to get them to feel placatable or to feel acceptable without getting rid of them. I help them see what the sort of original patterns are. And in observing those original patterns, it helps release them. It helps them get a handle on it, as opposed to a 30-year-old story that doesn't resemble the original impact, right? The intuition side of my work comes from me being able to see what and where those impacts happened in their body or their psyche or their family line or their genetic code, or it happened to their great-great-grandfather. All of these things can impact the individual that I'm working with. And if you go and you talk about your issues with someone who's not trained in intuition, you're just recounting a same story. And, I had a talk therapist for years and it didn't get me very far. I used to go and say, I dream the future, and sometimes I see things that happen in months in advance. And, we don't want to talk about that now. And turns out that was one of my major issues I was having, was figuring out what I was perceiving was actually justifiable and not something outside of my own personal realm. Right. It may not have made sense to those around me, but it certainly made sense to me. And so trying to fit someone like me or someone who's hearing this into a box of psychotherapy just wasn't where my issues lied. So I fortunately found someone in my neighborhood in Manhattan similar enough to my now skill set. They were like a holistic therapist, I would say. And they allowed me to sort of be more comfortable in my body, which allowed my intuition to flourish, which then led me to realizing I can study it well enough and long enough that I'm able to now help people with their own either intuition, accepting their own intuition, or accepting and releasing patterns or traumas that they've held in their body or their soul pattern or their family line.
On our previous conversation, we came at it because you actually offered me a session before we recorded the interview, and we walked through the process on the last episode. So if you've not heard the show yet, I would recommend you go back and listen to it. The Intuitive Healer, Scott Clover is the title. and it'll give you a really good idea of what the process is like. You also did the same thing for Karen this time around before this conversation. But before we get to Karen's experience, you mentioned something off camera right before we started recording that I've got to share because it made me smile. One of the things, probably the biggest thing that happened from my session with you was there was a time where I had to say I was humorless is probably not fair, but I don't really laugh at sitcoms or situations. I hadn't laughed, like truly belly laughs for a long time before you and I got together. And then during the session, you were able to release something in me that actually provided me with my very first belly laugh in a long time. And apparently one of our listeners reached out to you because that story resonated with her, and she reached out to you because she wanted to laugh as well. So how did that turn out?
Yeah, it turned out very well. People resonate with stories when they hear about my work. That's why, it's beneficial for you to understand what the work is before we talk about it, just so other people can understand it. For me to sit here without you understanding the work would be sort of rhetorical. It's just me talking about it and then say, well, does it really work? And is this person full of it, or do they know what they're doing, et cetera? And, because there's a lot of us that do this work that unfortunately people want to bring their egos into it. And that's not where healing is. Healing comes in boldening people's self-esteem. So my story is not important to your healing process. I'm the observer or the librarian, and I will help you factor it in for your sake.
All right.
So yeah, it did help people understand that we do hold things in our bodies, and they can be as small things. I had a client once years ago who she had migraines as a 50-year-old, and she came and sat with me, and it turns out it was because her mom wouldn't let her wear jeans when she was like 12 years old. And she wasn't allowed to self-express, and she held that anxiety in her body, and she held that lack of self-expression in her body that to the point it became so frustrating on several different factors. And once we released that, her migraines went away and they never came back.
I see Karen going back over her life going, how did I mess up my daughter now?
Hey, wait a minute. Me? That's you.
Sorry, Scott. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no. So we all have different things that impact us. And if you don't know the origination point, it's really hard to solve it for you. You can dance around it. It's almost like trying to kill the roots of a plant from above ground. That's very difficult. So what I do is I say we push the root out from below to expose it. And once it's exposed, you can clear it. And that's because I'm able to see the impacts and sense where they happened either in the body or in your psyche. But it happens, I have stories every week about people that felt limited or felt controlled, or women who were sexualized too early, or boys who were emasculated too, at a young age. And then it crimps their psyche in a certain way. And until those kinks can be released and the energy flowing back again, you're going to have a hard time, crawling out of that rut that you find yourself in, whether that feels like it's a depressive state. I heard a term a while back, spiritual malaise. And I like that term a lot, unfortunately, because it really explains a lot of what's happening to us now. Is we've been told a bunch of stuff. Some of it's true. Some of it's obviously not true. Our lives have been impacted, and there's so much questioning going on about how do we exist and subsist in our own societies, that for a lot of people sitting at home for 2 years has caused a spiritual malaise. And reintroducing ourselves back into society isn't as easy as we assumed it would be 2 years ago, when we thought, we can't wait to jump back into society. Well, society's really not churning itself back in the way it was before. You follow me?
Completely. Yeah. In fact, there's a lot of studies going around about how it was re-emerging syndrome, or I forgot what the name of the term, but there's an actual term now for it that people come into this.
Yeah, that sounds like similar to what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But even if you're not ready to reemerge, you still know that some things needs to be justified in your own energy, right? If you're energetically sensitive, then you're going to need to sort of comb out some of the snarls.
How much would that impact people, though, if we've been home and just kind of keeping our energy for the most part to ourselves, and then all of a sudden you're back, and it seems like there is kind of this real negative vibe happening a lot. You've got to be busy, because I would imagine a lot of people are really being affected by that.
Well, there's a negative vibe, in America socially right now, as well as individualistically, if that's a word. The individual, once again, is trying to say, how do I subsist in my own skin? How do I survive? How do I get in tune with my own intuition so I'm not over feeling? Right? A lot of my work is helping empaths and other intuitives understand their empathy and their intuition so they don't overfeel. One of my podcasts that I have, one of the episodes is called Mind Your Own Energy. And I'm really pleased with that title that I came up with because people need to start taking care of themselves. Mothers need to stop overgiving because their children don't want the amount of attention or the amount of energy being put upon them, and yet the mother's on autopilot. And so people have to start realistically understanding that their kids need some independence and their kids need space held for them. And sometimes when a mom is so good at her job at 5, she forgets that when the child's 5 years old, she forgets that at 15, that energy transference needs to change for an independence to happen on both sides of that equation. Because if you're not feeling independent as a mother, then your child maybe not be feeling independent as their own person. And children want to see their parents happy. So if you're switching energy back and forth of judgment between, I think my child should be this, and the child saying, I would like to express myself this way, and there's a back and forth of that, that's one way how energy can get snarled up and people can misconstrue it. And then once it's misconstrued, those situations can get out of hand unless they're dealt with or understood, or what I call accept the existing reality. Meaning your 15-year-old child does not need the same sort of attention that your 5-year-old child needs.
Okay, so
Nor do you need to give it, please.
I'm okay with the child on that. Could you tell my husband that?
Anyway, so we're talking about energy. So the interesting thing about you sent us a media kit over and we took a look at your skill sets. And this stuff that you do isn't just limited to people, right?
Correct.
You actually are able to help heal, for lack of a better term, houses. You do exorcisms. You work with past lives. It's just a matter of seeing different energies, right?
It's a perception, and then in certain aspects, I interact with those energies. I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty in terms of a spirit that some people might think is a detrimental spirit. I figured that's my job. I'm trained at it. I'm good at it. I don't because I'm just observing it. And if I observe it and it feels that it's not congruent to the person I'm helping, that it's attached to, then we come up together with ways to detach from it. Whether that's a house, then I do it myself with salts and incenses and copal and a whole bunch of stuff I buy at the store, the New Age store. I do that for houses. I was written up in the Wall Street Journal for doing sort of a ghost chasing out of a house in Connecticut. So I really take that seriously because there are entities that stick around. And once they stick around and they don't cross over, they kind of get stuck here and then they get confused and they forget how to cross over. So they ask somebody like me, and then I communicate with them in a certain way and explain to them that they're better off elsewhere.
Can you share with us an example of an experience that you had with that? We've had a few different people talk about, I've done exorcisms, and they don't really tell us what happened. And obviously you can't go into detail or anything personal, but I am so curious. I mean, you see the movie, you're traumatized.
Yeah,
in Amityville, Connecticut. That's all I want to know.
It was not in Amityville, Connecticut. Not that house. I don't watch those movies because I don't relate to them, mostly because I just see it as a pattern. And there's a desire. That pattern has a desire, meaning if there was an entity or some, woman in the 17th century that's still attached to the house for some reason, it's all just about the story. It's about their story, them being seen and heard, and to some degree placated if it's a spirit. So yeah, I just did one the other day. I do them over iPad, believe it or not, now with COVID. Yeah, because the quantum energy, I don't need to be in the same room to experience what's in that room.
That's so amazing.
It's a cross between sort of quantum sensing and remote viewing, if you will. And so I just did one. I've done them in New Zealand. I do them on different continents from where I'm at. And it just generally takes an iPad pointed at the ceiling. And then I sort of commune with whatever's there and ask it why it's there, what it needs, where it would be better off. And then I generally have an idea of where to send it or to tell it where to go. And I get my point across, I have to say. It's rare that I would have to go back a second time. And sometimes you go back a second time because there's entities that are attached to the larger entity that don't really interact with humans. But if there's a large spirit, like say a dead person attached to the home, or a dead person attached to the geography or the land, it doesn't have to necessarily be the home. The one I did last week in Brooklyn, it was in a newer apartment building built within the last 20 years, but I sensed there were spirits there from what was there 2 buildings ago. So it was more like probably late 18th century. There was a young girl that just hadn't crossed over and she wanted to be seen. And the new mom and the daughter in the family could sense that there was something there. So I worked with her for about 15, 20 minutes with the iPad, and then did one of my rituals. And then, so the spirit ended up moving. She's no longer there anymore. And the client's very happy and the daughter can't sense it. Which I want to say, if you're around children, you can ask them where there's other spirits are in the room, and they generally, if they're connected, they can tell you. Most adults over 13 or 14 can't do that. And the adults at 13 or 14 or older don't remember having that ability. But if you ask a 5 or 6-year-old, hey, do you sense anything else in the room? They'll say, oh, there's an old guy laying on the TV, and there's a guy over there laughing. And but we don't ask them that as adults because we don't perceive them.
We don't want to be scared.
No, yeah. We don't
nothing really scary about it. Right. Maybe you don't want to know about it. But the children are very perceptive. I mean, one thing you can do with like newborns or kids that aren't verbal is take your sort of energy center in your forehead and pretend that it raises up out of your head about 3 or 4 inches above your forehead. And you will actually see the baby's eyes follow where you send your soul energy. Because the baby's perceiving more than just the physical entity in front of it. The baby's perceiving energy fields that we are no longer able to see. So if you're ever around like a newborn or like under 1 year old and they're in the crib, you just look, or in the, what is that called? Papoose thing? I don't know.
Bassinet.
Bassinet. Just move your energy up off your forehead and the baby's eyes will follow it. It's very interesting.
So in the mundane world, a lot of people will think what you're just talking about is maybe not so much spirits or negative entities, but rather energies, right? Negative energies that are blocked. But you have been talking about entities, right? Spirits that are blocked or not leaving houses and things like that. I guess you can say it could be one and the same thing. But the same thing with the baby looking at the energy. I mean, one could be said that could be the aura when you shoot your aura up. I mean, baby's noticing that kind of thing. So what makes you so sure that what you do actually is clearing energy and not something that someone goes, well, I feel better because Scott helped me visualize through things and that psychosomatically makes me feel better?
Right. Well, as maybe you both can attest to from having done a session, you experience it in real time. I'm experiencing it through your sensations. So it's happening to you and I'm perceiving that it's happening to you. And if you agree with me, then we both experienced it, which makes it more real. Right? So energy that drains out of your abdomen, for example, that happened to you and I experienced it alongside of you. So I'm not the one the next day that can say, oh, that didn't happen. That's on you.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But we perceived it at the same time.
We did. And I wanted you to talk about that because it's easy for me to say, yes, this is real. Or for me, what made it real was not just the immediate visualization of the thing, but actually what happened afterwards, where I actually had to call you and say, dude, you got to do something. I'm freaking out. Right. And it just didn't happen to me. So for it to happen, actually the opposite of how you said would happen to me, but yet the energy that was stored in me afterwards was painfully obvious that something had changed. It's hard for me to express that on a microphone. So what I'm trying to do is get a viewpoint out to the audience so that they can wrap their heads around it without actually experiencing it. Well, I mean, obviously they should reach out to you, right, to experience it first and foremost, because that's the best way to experience it. But I'm hoping we have a way to really explain how this stuff works. I know it's
how this stuff works.
Yeah, it's
energy gets coagulated, stuck, stymied. And if you're not perceiving where, if you don't know you have leaves in your gutter and your gutters are overflowing and you look in the gutters, you find the leaves. Well, they're not going to clear themselves, right? So if you think of it that way, I help you understand where your gutters are leafy, if you will, and then embolden you to take the stick and pull the leaves off. It doesn't do so much good if I do it for you, because they may come back. But if you do it, then either you've learned how to do it or it knows that you meant business, because it's your psyche that's willing or wanting to change. Right?
So
You show up with the desire or the intention to heal, your body's going to respond. And if you show up with the intention to heal and there's self-esteem behind that act, your body's going to respond even better with more efficacy and more chances that you will feel lighter longer, or expose it and remove it to the point that it doesn't come back. Whether that's a trauma or an emotional story or a breakup or a divorce, right? A lot of people have been divorced for a decade and they still haven't gotten over it. Well, that impacts the children involved, or the parents of those people, or the sisters and brothers of those people. One faulty relationship can cause havoc in a whole family unless it's somehow resolved in the individual that it happened to. And those are the things that I help people do.
So Will, you've told me a lot, but it's been a while, so I don't remember all the details of your experience. But you said like this energy draining out of your stomach. For me, the thing that impacted me most was these flashes of really bright colors. So bright purple and yellow, just really intense. How could the experiences be so different? And do those colors mean anything, by the way?
They probably in the moment meant something, Karen. The experiences were different because we came at the session with two different intentions. Will's was he was having, actual situations that he didn't want to feel as impacted by those situations.
Mm-hmm.
Yours was more of I just want to feel better in my body without us dictating a specific incident, right? And that's the thing about my work that I like, is I can do both. And, in Will's case, it was take the largest elephant out of the room that was causing some blockages so he can laugh again. And in your case, it was more like, let's plant some flowers so they grow faster.
I have this like overlapping or lasting, or I don't even know the right description, mellow feeling. Definitely kind of, I don't know. Have you noticed that? Well, probably not, but I feel more mellow since.
Oh, yeah.
Since our session, you mean? You gained your mellow?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a sense of relief that now you're not taking those energy points that used to have to ignore what was bothering you. If we get rid of it, then you have those energy points to spend on something else. And in your case, it's not feeling as anxious.
Yeah.
And that's one of the aspects I really like about my job, is to take people who normally have overactive nervous systems, and through somatic visualizations and somatic techniques that I know, really help them relax in their own nervous system. So it just sort of spreads a calm, as I said, not through their system only, but through their household. Imagine the children of a less anxious mother. Those are happier children.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or the husband.
Imagine a father that learns how to become a better boss and doesn't bring that stuff home with him.
Yeah.
These are the things that I like about my job, is to help people energetically become better bosses. Because we're not trained to become a boss in our society. We're trained to become an employee. And sometimes when people get promoted, they don't understand the energy transference and sort of that archetypal change.
So Karen, speaking of your experience, did you have anything a day or two afterwards like I did, where you actually had to reach out to Scott again or anything?
I didn't. I mean, a bonus that I had the next day, I didn't have any back pain. Sadly, the back pain's back. I was hoping that would last longer, but no, I didn't. I didn't have that situation that you had, that kind of anxiety or whatever it was that you had.
And did anything happen during the session? Like Scott instructed me to just release some of the stuff that was inside me into a candle. And when I did that, I saw literally the candle flame just flare up. Anything like that happen with you?
Well, I had my eyes closed the whole time.
Oh, okay. I see. I
So
cheat.
maybe.
Well, Karen, you were speaking more about experiencing light, like feeling physical light happening, like a discotheque was going on in your perception. That is a chi flowing in either new ways or clearing out old pathways and rekindling itself. it's like when your leg falls asleep and then it starts to tingle when the blood goes back to it. Energetically speaking, if we remove some of those energetic barriers for whatever reason they were there, then more chi or more life force comes in, which causes a light show in your brain.
It was kind of like, it reminded me of like those psychedelic kind of hippie flower, like colors bubbling in and out.
Yeah. I refer to it sometimes as the lava lamp.
Yes.
Yeah.
God, remember
And
lava
when people
lamps?
start to get in tune with those subtle energies, a session with me is, I've blocked out that time. I'm going to meet with Scott. It's like giving yourself permission to clue into another paradigm, right? If you look at my nomenclature, if you look at, what's on my business card, it says intuitive energy healer. You're not coming to me to tell me your story again. You're coming to me to experience that story in a new way to get rid of it. And I'm really good at helping people do that, I have to say.
You,
Yeah.
you, by us, the two of us both agree you are very good at what you do. So
Thank
Now,
you. Thank you.
this makes sense when you look into like Eastern practices like Feng Shui and even martial arts, where it's all about moving energies and talking
Or
about
guiding energies, yeah.
talking about Feng Shui specifically, the way that you situate things in your room blocks energy or lets energy flow, and that brings well-being or not. So it would
Correct.
just stand to reason that internally it would be the same thing inside our own bodies, but as well in our own homes. Now, can you help people with their Feng Shui, or is that just beyond your expertise?
I know a little bit about Feng Shui. Generally, what I can do is, as I say, remote view inside the room the person's sitting in and tell them that there's something in their bookshelf behind them that's incongruous to them moving forward.
Can you do that, really?
Wow.
Yeah. Or sometimes people send me a picture of their altars. A lot of people make an altar that have symbols that mean something to them. They put a crystal over here and they put another crystal over here. And they send me the photo and I'll go, whoa, no, that celestite needs to go on the left because you're trying to clear that. And that obsidian needs to be outside your room. Don't put obsidian in your house. And, sometimes somebody will send me, or I'll sense their altar and tell them that something needs to shift. And when they do that, you hear an almost inaudible, it made them feel better. I remember once I had Karen Rausch Carter, who's my friend, who's a famous Feng Shui person. She was over at my house and I had a picture of water. And the picture of water was higher up on the wall. And she said, wow, you don't put pictures of water over your head because it makes you feel like you're drowning. And we took that picture of water and we put it below my chin line. And no joke, I went, I did feel better. So it's symbolism. In my case, it's a lot of imagination. It's a lot of middle-aged people that I work with and telling them and helping them to engage with their childhood imagination, where creativity and reality meet. Because for a lot of times, and what people don't talk about in Western society, in Western medicine, is if something's happening in your imagination, a lot of times your body can't tell the difference, whether it's happening in real time or not. So your body responds in kind, which is why I really like helping adults re-engage, or what I call evoke, their childhood imagination, because it's in that point that the self-esteem is bolstered. And also they can create a sense of safety in their minds that their nervous system responds to.
Okay, so you're like a biological Feng Shui expert. Bioenergetic Feng Shui.
Bioenergetics, yeah, I would say. But there's also, Feng Shui isn't the best way to describe it, but in this case, it's helping energy align itself, right? And if something bad happened to your grandfather, and your father's holding it in his body, then you're likely holding some resonant of that in your body as well. And if you don't know that, then you're going to keep trying to fix something other than what the actual issue is. So you come to somebody like me and I sense, something happened to your great-great-grandfather or your great-grandfather. And the shame that he felt is carried in your dad's body, which then you mimic that. It's very common for the child to want to take away the strife or the grief of the parent. And all they do is multiply it. They don't actually take it away. So then it gets carried down through generations. And you hear a lot of people now talking about generational patterns. Well, generational patterns is just the vibration that the child mimicked from the parent, thinking it was trying to relieve it. And instead of relieving it, all they do is match it, and now they duplicate it.
I could see how that goes with generational thought processes and even past lives, which we talked about a little bit. So I see on your that some of the skill sets that you help people develop their intuition.
Yeah.
How does what you do, the energy work, help people to develop their own intuition?
Well, that can be a lot of different ways. The main way is to accept that you are intuitive. And if you self-accept, then you're a lot more prone to utilize it for good and to have it be functional. A maligned intuition just holds us back or makes us cranky, right? So if I can help people understand how they're intuitive better, some people feel with their guts, some people feel with their third eyes. Some people have what I can see as like an inverted unicorn horn, in that their antenna should be growing out of their forehead, but for some reason or another, it's grown inward, and now they're not utilizing their intuition. They're being held back by it, right? If I think of my grandfather, who was very intuitive, and I get this from my parental line, my fraternal line, or paternal line, I should say. You know, my grandfather drank every day from a teenager till he was 98 years old. And I think it was just to stop these voices in his head. And when I think about him now, I see this like blunt, broken off unicorn horn that he just didn't know how to access. And that's just not something I wanted to keep incorporating. And so I sensed that in other people. Somehow their intuition was either blocked or stymied to protect them or to protect their grandfather or their grandmother. And then so their mother's intuition was stymied or hindered. And so they get the family ability, but yet they also get the inability to express themselves passed down. So it just can depend a lot of times. Sometimes when I work with people and we do that energetic plumbing, as you call it, their intuition starts to flutter and eventually flourish just because they're accepting it. If you accept it, then the intuition comes a lot easier.
Are you one of those folks that believes that everyone is intuitive, or are there some more than others?
Well, yeah, I believe that everyone has intuition, but just like a marathon runner, I'm not a Kenyan, so I don't run marathons because I'm built differently. But if I wanted to run a marathon, I'd ask a Kenyan to run a marathon because they seem to be more built for it, right? So some people just have more prowess. Some people have larger satellite dishes. My satellite dish is very large. And over the years, I built it on a structure that can support it. And because of that, I can now help people utilize theirs. A lot of people want to be top heavy. A lot of people think, oh, let me be intuitive and open up all my upper chakras, and then I'm going to talk to the Palladians. And that's great for them. But if they're not grounded in their body and they're not grounded in feeling safe, then they're eventually going to either sunburn their brain or fall over a little bit because they're top heavy.
No one likes the bodybuilder that's got very tiny little legs and a huge upper body.
That would be an example of, yeah, I say it's like putting a satellite dish on a shack. So I really help people understand this. The prowess of your intuition comes also with how much you feel comfortable with your sense of self. That's what I think is interesting about the podcast that you do. And that's why I reached out initially, is because I really believe in what you're doing here. You know, I do what I do, and there's other people that help people in different ways. Am I the best fit for every single person? No, but if you've tried other things and they haven't worked, and you know you're empathic or intuitive and you have boundary issues, or you know that there's a family curse, or you know, if you know certain aspects about what we've talked about, then go find someone that can help you on that and believe in them so it works, right? Don't find somebody that you believe in, and then you can lean into it. Don't come at it begrudgingly and say, well, this person better, pull my scabs off. Well, I'm not there to pull off your scabs, right?
It's not a good visual, Scott.
Exactly. That's my point, is that's not the job. But lean in, find somebody who thinks along either the same lines, or you don't know what you're experiencing, and then you want to believe that there's something else out there. And that's once again why I think is so interesting about the guests that you have on your show.
Well, and
it's so diverse.
That's one thing that is just fantastic about you and about most of our guests. And they'll say the same thing. Hey, I might not be your person, but there are a bunch of other different modalities out there, and find the one that speaks to you. Whereas the person's like, oh, you got to come to me. That's when you're like, that's a little shady.
Sure. Like you had a guy on a while or just recently who feels like entities and parasites, energetic parasites.
Mm-hmm.
I clear 2 or 3 of those a week with my clients.
Yeah.
And so
really curious to hear what he says about this interview once we release it, because he's very vocal about people. So I'm really curious to hear what he says.
Yeah, I mean, entities happen, they attach to people. And a lot of times what I sense is it's not necessarily an entity, it's an old paradigm or an old mindset that you had at 5 or 7 or 13 that created a thought pattern in your psyche or in your physical body. Well, not your physical body, but your energetic body, I should say. And if it attaches to your energetic body, it becomes parasitic. And so you sense it almost like an eel or an entity or a large tadpole. And it doesn't have a full-on brain, but it has a thought pattern in that it's there to fulfill a purpose.
So
And
how
if that
can you,
purpose is no longer viable or you've grown out of it, then you don't need or want that thing attached to your energy field anymore.
how can you tell the difference if it's an entity or if it's just,
A thought pattern?
yes.
They have different vibrational patterns. They have a different density. When the person perceives them, they generally can tell also if they ask them there. I have a series of questions I go through because when I work with that, I don't do it. The client experiences it in their own right. And the client speaks to the thought pattern or the entity itself. And by doing a series of questions, by asking, does it have a name? Or is the person responsible for asking it to be there? And a lot of times, yes. And I say, what year did it happen? And it's, age 5. What happened at age 5? My parents got divorced. Or I moved schools, or I moved to a different country. These are all things that all after time. And I say, what happened to the age of 5? There's a maligning concept that you have in your psyche that's become parasitic. And then that's when they'll say, something bad happened to me, or I had a car accident, or as I said, my parents got divorced, or moving schools is a big one. Losing a friend, losing a pet, sometimes for kids who don't understand it. These can all kink the hose in that age group or that time, and I can, through my intuition, see where in your timeline these kinks happen, and that's how we can flush out what it is. But it's the client that's doing the work, not me, which is great.
Right. Does someone have to believe that what you're doing is real, or is it going to work no matter what?
Better to lean into it. Obviously, if I'm doing somatic works, that's less, I use my intuition to dictate which somatic technique I'll use or which part of the body we work on. But generally, those somatic techniques happen whether the person believes in intuition or not. So I'm able to sort of use my intuition on the non-believers and get them into that healing space because of, they realize that the part of the body I'm drawn to, they also have a pain there. So something's happening there. If I'm drawn to a part of your body, just as I was with you, Will, it's generally because you're experiencing some sort of maligned energy, whether that's pain and it's physical or it's energetic and there's an energetic underlying quantum reason why it's coagulating.
So really any type of malaise, spiritually energetic, inside your body, in your home, anything that sometimes you just feel kind of wonky or weird, that's probably a good indication to reach out and say, Scott, something's going on. Can we figure this out? Yeah.
Yeah. Or, where do you see this coming in my body, or why am I attached to this person, or why can't I let go of this person? A lot of empaths I work with, a lot of narcissistic abuse, people suffering from that, from either their childhood or their parent or their siblings. That's a lot of my work as well. But it's really neat to work with somebody and tell them you've got intuition coming into your forehead and it's offline. So let's get a laser pointer and get it to hit that pineal gland. And once people register that the incoming information into their third eye, for example, is coming in askew, and we get them to align it into their pineal gland, it's like, it can look like the front of a Pink Floyd album. The prism coming in and the rainbow coming in. When people connect to it, then healing can happen and insights can be there, and people's self-esteem can start to bolster. Because as I said, that's where the healing energy is. If you believe in yourself, then your body is more likely to want to or be able to heal itself.
Now, I know everybody's different, so I know what your answer is going to be, but I've got to ask it.
Sure.
Right? How typically, on average, how many sessions does it take to kind of clear the works? Get rid of ungum the works. Yeah.
Well, as you said, everyone is different. Some people I see weekly, like they would see a therapist instead of a therapy session. And then some people say, I have a trauma in my past, or I have a backache. I would like to try this quantum energy healing or this energy healing as opposed to a more traditional or physical intervention. Right? I don't physically have you press on your spine very often, but if there's energy in your spine that needs to be released and we release it, then the pain doesn't come back, right? So I'm not working on the medical side of it. I'm working on the energy underlying it. And if you unclog that or let that flow, then what follows it, which is mass or matter, then has more potential of feeling or going back to its original programming, or what I call more optimal for the situation. Meaning, yes, people have pains in their bodies that after working with me, those pains dissipate. But I work on it from an energetic perspective, not from the pain perspective itself.
So piggybacking on that, though, do you help with physical ailments, like people who are maybe have cancer or something along those lines? Or is that something you kind of try to stay away from?
People come to me for myriad reasons, right? Cancer is a misalignment of cells. And so it's the energy of those cells got somehow degraded or deteriorated. And so their programming started producing it differently. If you go back to an original program, and I'm not going to get specific to cancer, but if you go back to an original energetic program and you tell your body to reinstall that original program, then that maligning energy is less likely to be able to stay. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
So that can be anything. It doesn't have to be a physical ailment or a medical ailment. It can be an emotion. It can be a story, or as I said, a divorce in your past, things like that. But yes, a lot of people come to me with physical ailments, and then we work on the energetic reasoning why the ailment arrived or is there. And if it has a historic or a soul pattern, then we help resolve that soul pattern. Then down the line, their body regulates it itself. The same way you go to the doctor with a broken arm, they fix the bone, but the doctor doesn't come back every day and rub salve on the bone so it grows. The body knows how to heal itself once the alignment has taken place. So I help people with the alignment, and then the body heals itself.
And then I would imagine that you would be good for people that have, is it OCD, or the thing where they're counting all the time or turning the doorknob 50 times?
Yeah, OCD.
That's OCD?
Mm-hmm.
There's OCD, there's DID, which is people that detach and go into different types of their psyches. It can work to integrating DID. There's a lot of things that it can work for. As I said, if it's a good fit, then it's a good fit for the person. But the person generally needs to understand that there's an energetic underlying story happening. And if they perceive that story in reality, not a wishful thinking, I wish my body didn't hurt, or I wish my knee didn't hurt. Well, guess what? It does hurt. So let's stop wishing and deal with the reason behind it, or the reason underlying.
Right. Because we all know that if you wish for something, the universe is going to make you keep wishing for it, because that's what it thinks you want.
It becomes always elusive. That's a very law of attraction state. Yeah.
Right.
So you don't wish it to be, you accept it what it is, and accepting what it is, then you can change it.
Right. Right.
And that's why my perception of patterns, because I just read the energy of it. I read the energy pattern and I tell you where it's maligned or misaligned, and I have you use visualization and your imagination to experience it on your own for yourself, so the healing can be experienced by you.
So how about kids? How does this work for kids? Have you ever done stuff on kids? I'm sure probably a little too young, it wouldn't be good for, but maybe someone who's 10 above.
Sometimes parents ask me about their children, and I do work with the archetypal charts, which means we can have your archetypal chart read, and then we work with the archetypes. And so sometimes I work with parents and explain their children's archetypes back to them so their parents can understand them for who they are and give each other a break. Because a lot of times if you're perceiving your child through your own lens, you're not giving that child the ability to be themselves. And that causes frustration on both sides. So a lot of times I'll work with parents on and explain their children back to them from an archetypal standpoint, meaning the chart. But a lot of times, no, I'd like to work with people over 18, their sense of self. I have worked with a couple teenagers with their parents' permission, but it just doesn't, I'd like to see the psyche a little more formed than that. And just because I just think it's appropriate to work with adults.
Yeah. And I'm sure the more you know yourself, the easier it is for you to go in and help someone with that. Where someone who is before you're 18, you're kind of, heck, I'm much older than that. I'm not sure 100% sure I know who I am completely yet. So I can see someone that's young may have a tough time with this.
Well, and there's different milieus. Like 6 and 7, we have a different perception of ourselves. It's like we don't know we fit into an actual world until we're 6 or 7 years old. With our age, it used to be 7. Now with the younger kids, it's more like 6. And then there's another coming of age at 12 or 13, middle school, puberty, things of that. How do I perceive and interact in the world? And then again at 19, when we should look back and say, oh, all that garbage we went through and all the stuff we're holding on to us, let that go and become the adult you're supposed to be. No one stops and tells a 19-year-old how to write a check, how to do your taxes, and to let go of all the bullshit that brought you to this point and become your own adult. And I wish we did add a class to that of 19-year-olds because a lot of us would have been better off. But yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But I think that would be a fantastic service for the parents that come, and because we look at our kids and we just kind of see them as little mini-me's and we expect them to think and feel and react and respond the way we do. But to have someone like you come in and say, no, this is really what they're like, boy, you should really
if your daughter has queen archetype and she wants to sit on her throne and have, experience the queen experience, and you have servant archetype, you're not going to relate to her. But if you understand that you have servant archetype and your daughter has queen archetype, then you're going to see it for what it is and be more responsible to that situation and more aligned with the reason why they're acting that way or the reason why you're responding that way. And it can be so enlightening for people. It can be so uplifting to the parent to go, there's no fault here. They just are. When you can say there's no fault and people just are, it takes a lot of the anxiety out of situations and a lot of anxiety out of relationships.
Sure. So how do you find, I know we're running way out of time, but how do you find, it's a whole other conversation. How do you find someone's archetype?
It's a chart. It's similar to an astrological chart. We all have different archetypes that we are born with. And I think of them as mandalas or stained glass windows. We each have our own mandala. We each have our own stained glass window. It's just the colors are different and they're different placements. So if you shine a light through your soul, it's going to project differently than the light of my soul because I have healer archetype and I have visionary archetype. These are the archetypes that help me do my job, right? But there's other people who have pioneer, which means they're just going to keep working. They're just going to keep going for it.
We got to book a session.
Yeah.
Now I'm dying to know.
Yeah. There's a lot we have to book with Scott for.
A few sessions.
Yeah.
Several.
Well, your podcast, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, is the Intuitive Energy Podcast. I've listened to it, and it's a really great resource to get even deeper into some of these concepts we talked about today. We also are going to we'll put a direct link to your podcast on our show notes. We'll also put your social medias, your Instagrams, your Facebook, that kind of stuff on our social media so people can reach out to you if they're so inclined. And I'm telling you from our personal perspective, both Karen and myself, and this is coming from a skeptic, we both really feel like this Scott is the real deal. So
absolutely,
it would be super interesting. We'd love for invite you to reach out to Scott, have a session or two, and come back to us and let us know what you thought, because we want to be able to compare our experience with those of our audience. So
great.
Scott, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show again. It's always a pleasure to have you. And maybe session 3 will be the final finished product. We always have so much to talk about.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for coming.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your help with all the healing and everything.
Yeah. We will see you again soon. I promise you that.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome, both of you.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode of the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Listener, thank you for coming along on this journey of discovery with us again. Don't forget, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram under @SkepticMetaphysician. As always, if you know someone that would benefit from hearing the messages we've shared on the show or any of our others, I hope you'll consider sharing us with that person. It will help grow the show and may just help someone else come to terms with the fact that we're so much more than just this three-dimensional body that we inhabit. Listening to this episode on the radio and miss anything? Not to worry. All of our shows, including this one, can be found on our site, skepticmetaphysician.com. Don't forget that you can become a member of the Skeptic Metaphysician community for free there and enjoy the added benefits of discounts for services from some of our past guests, as well as a chance to never miss a show or an announcement immediately once it's been published. We hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we have. That's all for now. We'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians. Until then, take care.